So in this video we're going to do a relative compression test on this Ford 3-cylinder. We're going to see what good looks like, and then we're going to put some faults on the engine to see if the voltage check can pick up any compression faults. So make sure you subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all our automotive diagnostic videos, and if you enjoyed what you see today, give us a thumbs up. So if you haven't seen my other video already on the relative compression test, make sure you go and check that out. We do a similar test, but we're using amps rather than voltage. So in this video we're going to be checking the relative compression using voltage measurement. What we've done is we've connected the positive and negative lead of the oscilloscope up to the battery. We're on channel A and we're using the Pico 22048 oscilloscope, a favourite of mine. So there's a few settings that you're going to need to be aware of when doing this test, so we'll go through those first. It might be easy to assume that you just set it up as normal with the 20 volt scale. So what we'll do is we'll do that test first and see what we get. So I'm going to set to 20 volts and 100 milliseconds. Let's crank it over and see what we get. Okay, so if you've seen the amp draw relative compression check, you'll know that it measures compression based on the current draw of the battery. So as the current draw increases, it means the compression in the cylinder is increasing. So what you should get is equal peaks of rising and falling current. On the voltage check, what we're looking for is the opposite. So as the engine comes up to TDC compression, the voltage is going to drop because it gets harder. So we set up to 20 volts here. We can see that we've got 12 volts. We try and start the engine, it drops, but we can't really see any, so there's nothing there to help us see any compression issues. So what we're going to do is we're going to change it to AC coupling, and that's going to bring our baseline to 0. We're then going to change the scale down to 1 volt. Okay, so now you can see there's a lot more noise on there, it's a lot more focused. So although we're measuring 12 volts, that line is at 12 volts, but we're also seeing all the minute detail that's going on around it. So let's do a quick check now and see if it's any better. So we've paused the scope. Let's scroll back through. There we go. Okay, so we can see the big drop there where we get the initial current drop. It's pretty much opposite of what we got on the current draw one. I'll just show you what that looked like, remind you. And then we've got these peaks and drops of voltage. And what we're looking for is, if we get the cursor here, bring it down, we're looking for nice equal peaks. And as this is a 3-cylinder engine, it's really good for showing this, really basic. So I'm just going to save this waveform. There's a link in the description. If you want to download any of the waveforms that we've used in the videos in the past, make sure you hit the link. All you do is stick your email in, and then we'll email you a link to a folder where they're all stored. So what we can do now is put a fault on the engine and do the same test to see what we get. In the other video I put a trigger on number 1 ignition coil so we could see where number 1 was. I'm not going to do that today because it's really not necessary for this 3-cylinder engine. The firing order is literally 1, 2, 3. So what we'll do is remove spark plug number 2 and see what happens. Okay, so we've removed that plug from number 2. Let's crank it over and see what we get. Okay, so we've paused the scope. Let's scroll back through and have a look at what we can see. Right. So there's our initial drop in voltage where we crank it over. If we go over to the next page, we can see there, look. Bring the cursor down. We've got a flat spot in the voltage. Right, so clearly it can pick up a complete compression loss in a cylinder. Let's see if it can pick up a smaller compression leak. What we'll do is we'll wind the plug back in all the way down, and then we'll back it off a couple of turns, crank it over, see what we've got. So put the spark plug back in, wind it all the way down, and then we'll just wind it back 2 little turns, so we've got a compression leak. Let's crank it over. And scroll through, see what we've got. So this is interesting. It doesn't look like we've got as much of a difference as when we did the measurement with the current probe. Right, so although it doesn't look like we've picked anything up on the face of it, what we have got quite a lot of scope to do here is there's a lot of screen that we're not using. So I'm thinking if we drop the voltage scale, we might still be able to pick something up. So if we use the ruler here, we're actually measuring a scale of only like 150 millivolts. So let's drop this scale down. Let's go for it. Let's do 200 millivolts and see what we get. So we've paused it there. Let's scroll back through there and hopefully we can see this slight compression loss like we did on the current probe measurement. There's quite a lot of noise on there, so we might try another scope setting which might help. Okay, so still not really clear which one we've got a loss on. So what we're looking for actually is the bottom half of this pattern. If we've got a loss in compression, one of these would actually be higher. So we'll do the same measurement again, but what we'll do this time is we'll drop down the resolution of the scope, sample rate. So watch that, as we drop the sample rate, we start to lose a lot of that noise. Okay, let's see what we get at 700S. So you can see there that we've got a much clearer line now, but for me there's still not enough to say that yeah, we've definitely got a compression issue. Again, compare it to what we did with the current clamp. It was really defined when we did this test with the plug wound out a bit. So I hope you found this helpful. So if you already use this test in your diagnosis, let us know in the comments on how successful you are with it.